has Israel's war on Gaza shaped the Middle East? Al Jazeera Forum this year discusses the implications of this war. With new realities on the ground, how has the conflict changed the geopolitics in a volatile region? And how is the Gaza ceasefire shaping up? This is Inside Story. Welcome to this special edition of Inside Story from the Al Jazeera Forum. I'm Sami Zeidan. A shaky Gaza ceasefire has entered its second phase, but raising with it many questions about governance. You see, a technical committee is supposed to take over the running of Gaza, overseen by a board of peace. But will these mechanisms actually succeed? Now that's the question I'll be posing to our guests in a moment, after this report by Alex Baird.
Political leaders, academics and journalists discussing the significance of geopolitical shifts in the Middle East and beyond. This year, once again, Gaza is top of the agenda at the Al Jazeera Forum.
The two-year war on Gaza has significantly shifted the Palestinian issue, putting it at a major crossroads. On one side, the Israeli occupation is seeking to reoccupy Gaza, forcibly displace its population, settle in some of its parts, and confiscate what's left of the land in the West Bank. On the other side, its aim is to liquidate the Palestinian issue and prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state. This shift has brought the issue back to the forefront of the global stage in all aspects.
On the first day in Doha, speakers warned Israel's genocide in Gaza is undermining international humanitarian law and reshaping regional power balances. Hamas told the forum that the group rejects any outside governance of the Strip, but that an agreement is possible on laying down its weapons.
Gaza needs a long time to recover. The presence of international forces on the border to maintain peace and prevent any clashes between the two sides is a guarantee. Hamas has offered a truce of 5, 7, or 10 years. This is a guarantee. These weapons will not be used, will not be brandished.
4 months into the ceasefire, Israeli forces are still carrying out near daily attacks and have killed hundreds of Palestinians. Some of the worst happened in the past 2 weeks. Hamas says these attacks need to stop.
As long as there is an occupation, there is resistance. Resistance is a right of peoples under occupation and is part of international law.
The US says the second phase of the ceasefire is now in effect. Part of that has been the reopening of the Rafah crossing in southern Gaza. But the first week did not go as Israel promised. Only a few dozen Palestinians requiring urgent medical treatment were allowed to cross into Egypt, a far cry from the 50 patients every day that had been agreed. And on the international stage, diplomatic posturing on Gaza takes place with little input from the people living there. The US president has set up what he's called a board of peace to oversee the Strip. Those who want to be members have to pay $1 billion. But on the ground, this means little to Palestinians who are still struggling to find food and clean water in unlivable conditions. Alex Baird, Al Jazeera, for Inside Story.
Joining us now are our guests, Mustafa Barghouti, leader of the Palestinian National Initiative, Abdullah Shayji, Professor of International Relations and US Politics at Kuwait University, and Ziad Majed, Professor of Middle East Studies at the American University of Paris. Good to have you all with us. Mustafa, I could start with you. Does the National Committee, this technocrat committee which is supposed to be running Gaza, does it actually have legitimacy in the eyes of the people of Gaza?
I think people in Gaza and Palestinians in general welcomed the formation of this committee, basically for two reasons. The first one is that they want Gazans to run the situation in Gaza and not any foreign body. So the fact that this group is consisting from people from Gaza is appreciated. And the second reason is that people want to see change in their life immediately, especially in Gaza, especially in terms of reconstruction, in terms of alleviating the horrible humanitarian situation there. And these are the two main reasons. But at the same time, the committee carries a very big risk, because if people don't see change immediately,
they're going to get frustrated.
Of course, if their life doesn't get better immediately, of course their opinion will change. But I think this committee faces a very big challenge. And the first challenge is, will it be able to sustain its independence? Will it be able to maintain independent positions and keep the relationship with the so-called Peace Council in the format of coordination? And not allow the so-called Peace Council to control them.
The Board of Peace.
This is the biggest challenge.
I'm glad you mentioned that point. Abdullah Shayji, when you look at the composition, yes, this technocrat committee is run by Palestinians, but you look at who it reports to, the Board of Peace, the Gaza Executive Board, there isn't a single Palestinian name there. So when Mustafa talks about maintaining independence, does it really have the power to keep Palestinian interests in focus when it's reporting?
That's a good question. I mean, this is the thing that will undermine its viability, its mission, its objectives. The Palestinians are not going to see just overnight any major shift that will really help them to be convinced that we should support this committee, because it's a technocrat. The Palestinians have no role. I mean, even Netanyahu, as I stated in the forum, he's just fighting the Palestinians, this technocrat committee, about the logo, the symbol that is the same, the eagle, the Saladdin eagle, that is similar to the Palestinian Authority, that has no say in whatsoever regarding the future of Gaza being available there, play any role. So
they basically run the water and electricity, but they don't make the ultimate decisions. Is that what we're talking about?
They are subordinated all the way. And because of that, I agree with my friend Dr. Mustafa Barghouti that this is going to be a major challenge, not to mention the more important challenge, the stay of the occupation. The occupation is not going to leave, it seems. And there is also a push for forcing, in a way, under the headline or the title of not forcing their exile, the Palestinians, to push them to the edge for leaving, but also to make their lives miserable and to also keep this committee powerless, to try to alleviate their misery, to improve their daily life. And because of that, I think Netanyahu and his clique are determined to make sure this committee will be shackled and won't be able to deliver what is supposed to be delivered in the eyes of the people that they were supposed to serve and help.
That's a really important aspect too, Ziad, that this is all happening. The backdrop of this is that there still is an Israeli occupation of Gaza going on, right? So all this technocratic committee is supposed to come in and run Gaza, but it's in the shadow of an occupation. Is Israel?
Not shadow, presence.
The presence of an occupation ultimately is the real institution or quarter that will make decisions, the Israeli occupation.
Yes, absolutely. That's what Israel wants. In fact, the Israeli kept more than 50% of Gaza under their direct military occupation. They also control the access to Gaza when it comes to humanitarian aid, when it comes to the movement, possible movement of, I'm not going to say population, but individuals who either want to leave in order to receive medical treatment, or those who were displaced and want to return to Gaza. All of that is still under the Israeli control.
So will an Israeli occupation take orders from a Gaza Executive Committee or the Board of Peace?
Yeah, that's what Trump pretends, but I don't think that is going to happen concretely for many reasons. And what I think is important and key to understand in the Israeli occupation in that 50% or more of Gaza is that they control most land that can be used for agriculture, for instance. The remaining part of Gaza today was herbicided. All cities were destroyed. You have the sand of the sea. There's no possibility to develop any form of agriculture, while the area that Israel controls is the place that was with fertile lands and where you can have some activities. So what Israel aims through that is also to keep the population of Gaza in desperate need for international aid, for outside aid, that the Israeli army controls the access, determines sometimes the quantity, the number of calories, what is tolerated, what is not. So it
maintains its chokehold on Gaza, basically,
absolutely.
That we've seen over the many, many years. Dr. Mustafa, when you listen to what the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said on January the 17th, for example, he's spoken about how basically he's distanced himself or Israel from the Gaza Executive Committee, saying it wasn't coordinated with Israel and runs contrary to its policy. An ominous sign about his readiness to coordinate or to take any instructions from this organization?
Look, Netanyahu is a liar. And he lies constantly, and in this case, he lied again. No, he knew about the committee, and they ratified all the names on the committee, they and the Americans and the Egyptians, maybe. The original list included more than 50 people. And all these parties participated in scratching some of the names. Nevertheless, no, he knew, and he is lying here. But the committee is, you have to understand, the whole issue is about struggle. We are struggling against forces who want to maintain not only the Israeli occupation of Gaza, but to bring another foreign occupation of Gaza, so that we would be subjected to two occupations, not one. And I think the big 4 challenges or 5 challenges that face the committee. First, their ceasefire was declared, but it is only respected from the Palestinian side. Israel violated the ceasefire 1,500 times. How will this committee deal with the fact that when they get into Gaza, Gaza will still be bombarded? Second, the issue of Rafah crossing. Up till now, Israel declared that it opened it, but it's only symbolic, and in reality, it's theoretical. The truth is that Rafah crossing is still closed for Palestinians. Third, the amount of humanitarian aid. According to the agreement in the first stage, Israel should have allowed more than 600 trucks every day. And in the second stage, they should have allowed complete opening of humanitarian assistance. Up till now, even the 600 trucks are not allowed in. And the quality of what is allowed in is also very questionable. And finally, the biggest challenge in front of this committee is, first of all, to maintain connection and unity with the West Bank, and second, to understand that they are an interim body that should eventually prepare for free democratic elections.
That's in the Trump peace plan, that it should open a pathway for Palestinian self-determination, a very vague
We don't rely on what Trump says or Trump's plan. We rely on what we want as Palestinians.
Right. I will pick that point up in a
This
moment.
would be in a direct clash with what Trump wants. Trump is now calling for the board meeting for the Peace Council on the 19th of this month in Washington with the 27 countries. And he will be discussing contributions for rebuilding Gaza. And that clashes squarely with the vision of the future of Riviera of the Middle East that his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is pushing as a real estate developer. I mean, this is the crux of the issue. I mean, they're shifting and changing the misery of the Palestinian people in Gaza to a land development project.
But Professor Abdullah, can there even be talk of redevelopment when you still have, as Dr. Mustafa pointed out, there's still bombardments going on and violation of a ceasefire.
Yeah, I mean, which
investor is going to come and put his money in the middle of a war zone?
You're putting the horse in front of the, you're putting the cart in front of the horse. I mean, the priorities are really screwed up. There is no vision regarding. First of all, you have to stop bombardment. Second of all, you have to, the Israelis have to withdraw. Third of all, you have to respect the sovereignty and independence of this committee and allowing the Palestinians a breathing room.
Okay.
All of that is not available. So you have not prepared the ground to help in bringing the issue to the forefront and start talking about the remedies, the improvement, the development, entering, as our friends are saying, the crossing are still shut down. There is a meager amount of aid
phase
coming,
one, which
and
hasn't
even
been
people
implemented.
are not allowed to go in and go out.
Ziad, when you look at some of the statements, there have been a lot of statements from several cabinet members, Israeli cabinet members, very critical of the opening of Rafah, calling it a mistake. Even this very slight opening, we haven't seen, I should say, the sort of free movement of Palestinians to leave Gaza and re-enter Gaza, as mentioned in the Gaza-Trump peace plan. But even that has come under criticism. We've had calls from ministers like Bezalel Smotrich talking about how a military administration is what should be put in place in Gaza. Migration and settlement, he called for. Do you think that's still where the Israeli government, this government, would like to see the direction Gaza takes?
Yes, for sure. I don't think the Israelis changed their plans, or they still want to impose an ethnic cleansing after the genocide in Gaza. They want to, in some cases, allow settlements to be built there. And even the plan of Kushner that was mentioned, some studies evoke the fact that it can only have or host 500,000 people, not to talk about the prices, about the fact that they have nothing to do with the social fabric of Gaza, not to talk about this neo-colonial approach in dealing with the situation, with the mentality of real estate people more than of politicians. Trump himself is a real estate man. Jared Kushner and Witkoff, both of them are real estate men. And Tom Barak, who's in charge of Lebanon and Syria, is also a real estate billionaire. So there is this mentality of real estate on the American side that is not political and that is mainly into business, while on the Israeli side, the ideology of expansion, of genociding, of ethnic cleansing is still in the government. Of course, in between, there is the Palestinian people who are still on their land, refusing to leave, struggling. Right. And there are also some international mechanisms that could put and impose limits to all of that. But this is another struggle
I guess then the question, Professor Abdullah, is the question then really, does it ultimately come down to how much will, particularly of the side of the Americans, will they have to enforce some of the things that haven't happened that were already supposed to happen, never mind phase two, some of the issues which you and Mustafa have mentioned, like full entry of aid, the complete cessation of attacks in Gaza? Does it come down to the American, as someone who studies the American politics?
Yeah, I don't think there is a good faith when it comes to Trump regarding putting screws on Netanyahu and his hardline close to neo-fascist with Smotrich and Ben Gvir, and they believe that they have to reoccupy the whole of Gaza and ethnic cleanse its whole population. And remember,
and you think the Trump administration will let
Trump
that pass?
proposed that last year to take all the ethnic cleansing, kicking out all Gazans, and rebuilding New Riviera and bring all the rich people. The weather is nice.
Well, that would be a destruction of his peace plan.
Of course. Trump is the king of contradictions. I mean, he just have shows. He wants to have, this whole, even as we discussed in the forum today, this whole peace council does not have any legs to stand on. It replaces the whole mandate and references and all the United Nations Security Council, undermine the stability and the legitimacy and the role of the international organizations with no legitimacy whatsoever.
Dr. Mustafa, can this committee even begin at this point to actually run even the level of running the power station, running the water system? Where is, for example, the new Palestinian police force that's supposed to take over? Who does it coordinate with to control events on the ground?
Look, the future of this committee and its ability to run the life in Gaza will depend 100% on its ability to coordinate with the Palestinian local forces. I mean by that the Palestinian National and Islamic forces in Gaza, who are ready to help the committee. And Hamas has been very clear and have done the preparation to transfer all the authorities from their authority to this committee. So from the Palestinian side, there is no obstacle. The only obstacle is probably these collaboration groups, the collaborators that Israel has created, which could harm the work of the committee. So if the committee works with the local forces, with the local Palestinian political groups, with the local community, with the civil society, it will have a lot of leverage that it can use to improve the conditions of the people. But we have to remember that the Peace Council is not acceptable in its formation now. If you bring a war criminal like Netanyahu, who has been responsible for killing and injuring 250,000 people, 12% of the population, I mean, that is a horrible number. If you apply it to the United States of America, you could be talking about 35 million people killed or injured. This criminal is brought to the Peace Council and there is no Palestinian there. That's why I think there is an increasing dissociation between the so-called Peace Council and the work of this committee. Now, how can things change? Who could force Israel to stop bombarding Gaza? 3 parties. Us, staying on our land, struggling for our freedom. The fact that we managed to fail the Israeli effort to ethnically cleanse Palestinians is the biggest failure in the Israeli policy. So the steadfastness of the Palestinian is the first factor. Second factor, all these mediators, especially the Arab countries, they have to exercise pressure on Mr. Trump to exercise pressure on Israel. But believe me, the biggest additional factor is the international solidarity movement. It has to be activated, and it has to be activated widely because it was the main factor why Trump interfered and stopped the war.
Dr. Mustafa, though, there is a point which we've been hearing from the Israeli Prime Minister, a man, as you mentioned, who is wanted over allegations of war crimes by the ICC. But he says we're not going to move to phase 2 unless there is a disarmament of Hamas. How do you see that point developing? And it is in the Trump peace plan that there is supposed to be a decommissioning of weapons, that the Palestinian factions are supposed to uncover their tunnels, destroy all weapons facilities. Is that going to happen?
Look, there is a big difference between decommissioning and surrender to the Israeli side. What Israel wants to impose is capitulation on the Palestinian people, and that will never happen. And what Israel wants is not demilitarization only. They want they want to destroy all forms of Palestinian struggle. They want to deny us the right to resist injustice, the right to resist occupation, the right to struggle for our freedom. And that's something they will never get. So the issue of the arms will have to be discussed within the context of Palestinian joint collective agreement about the forms of struggle we will have. And military struggle is not the only form of struggle, but to allow Trump or Israel to take away our right of struggling for our freedom is totally unacceptable and will never happen.
Ziad, have we seen, I mean, when we look into the history of conflicts, and you are a professor of Middle Eastern studies and conflicts, anywhere in the world, not just in the Middle East, the idea that you can disarm before an occupation ends? What is the success rate, shall we say, of that kind of model?
You know, if we just take the modern history of the Palestinian struggle, there were always talks about the end of a certain phase and that Israel imposed the order, whether after '82 in Lebanon when the PLO was forced to leave, then the two intifadas in Palestine, and now with the current situation, it's clear that the Palestinians did not surrender, are not surrendering, and will not surrender. And in most cases where you have occupation, in international law, resistance is possible. But as Mustafa was saying, armed resistance is not the only way. There are lots of other forms, and probably the Palestinians know more than any other people in the region.
Hang on, Ziad. If that's the case, does that mean automatically then we will not see any further Israeli withdrawal? They are supposed to, according to the Trump peace plan, to withdraw in a synchronized movement with disarmament.
That's a matter of also redefining what you mean by disarmament. There were also some possibilities to evoke the heavy weapons, to distinguish them from the light or individual weapons. I think there are rooms there for negotiation. The principle is the principle of the right to resist within international law, within all the Geneva Conventions. And if we look at the South African experience that is more and more inspiring the Palestinians, exactly as the Palestinian struggle did inspire the South African struggle against apartheid in previous decades, the issue is very much related to international solidarity, to networks that will allow the Palestinians to preserve not only their existence on their land, they are doing it anyway, but to put all kinds of pressures on the Israeli occupation, to put pressure, to impose sanctions on all those who violate international law. Since impunity has been what mainly protected the Israeli occupation, the most important effort today, through all possible forms of pressure, is to end with this impunity. And this is changing gradually, slowly, but it is changing in many parts of the world today.
And the issue of synchronization is Netanyahu's plan. It's not exactly what was in the plan. According to the plan, Israel should have started withdrawing from parts of Gaza in the first stage.
There are many aspects of phase one which haven't been implemented, but anyway, I've got 100 more questions for our panel, but unfortunately...
to withdraw the weapons and demilitarize while the occupation and bombing will continue. And this is the crux of the matter that will really be used by Netanyahu and Trump to force Hamas to surrender.
I'm sure we'll have another opportunity to come back in on all of these points, but for now, let's thank all of our guests, Dr. Mustafa Barghouti, Professor Abdullah Shayji, and Dr. Ziad Majed. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you too for watching this special episode of Inside Story from the Al Jazeera Forum. As always, you can catch the show again if you head over to our website, aljazeera.com. You can also catch it on our digital platforms on Facebook and X. From me and on behalf of the whole team here, for now, it's goodbye.